Welcome students. Today let us discuss the characteristics of bryophytes. Bryophytes are the most simplest and the most primitive land plants. The name bryophyte has been derived from two words, bryon meaning moss and phyton meaning plant. So moss-like plants are called as bryophytes. The word bryophyta was coined for the first time by Brown in 1864. The branch of science which deals with the study of bryophytes is called as bryology. Students, at the present, the phylum Bryophyta includes 960 genera and approximately 24,000 species. Bryophytes are small plants that grow in moist, shady places. They are terrestrial but require external water to complete their life cycle. Hence, they are also called as the amphibians of plant kingdom. They have a leafy or thalloid green plant which is completely adapted to the land habit, but as I said, they still depend on water for sexual reproduction. Now, what are the salient features of bryophytes? Bryophytes are land plants that differ from all the other plants, lacking lignified vascular tissue by having the gametophytic generation as the dominant and having unbranched sporophytes that produce a single sporangium. Bryophytes grow in damp and shady places. They follow heterologous haplobiontic type of life cycle. Heterologous meaning two different stages generations are involved, one haploid and the other diploid. The plant body lacks true roots, stem or leaves. The lower forms, mainly the Hepaticopsida and the members of the Anthoceratopsida, grow prostrate on the ground and are attached to the substratum by delicate unbranched unicellular hair-like structures called the rhizoids. Students, the rhizoids of the bryophytes are analogous to the roots of higher plants. Why I have used the term analogous? Because the origin is different. Morphologically, the origin is different. The rhizoids develop from the gametophytic generation, and the roots of the higher plants they arise from the sporophytic generation. But they are homologous structures. What do you mean by homologous? They are having the similar function as the roots of the higher plants. What is the function of roots? The function of roots is to absorb and attach, absorption and attachment. So, the function of the roots of higher plants are being done by the rhizoids of the bryophytes. The dominant plant body is the gametophyte, on which the sporophyte is semi-parasitic for its nutrition. Now, the salient features of the bryophytes. Higher bryophytes, the Bryopsida members, here the plant body is erect and it consists of a central axis which bears leaf-like expansions. It is attached to the substratum by branched multicellular rhizoids. The vascular tissues, The conducting tissues in the form of xylem and phloem are completely absent from this group, and the gametophytes bear multicellular and jacketed sex organs, the antheridia and archegonia. What is the structure of the antheridia? Antheridia is the male reproductive organ, and the structure of a mature antheridium, as you see, it is an elongated structure having a wide or pear-shaped body, and it is attached on a short stalk, multicellular stalk to the parent plant. And this antheridial chamber is attached to the stalk, and the antheridial wall is surrounded. The antheridial chamber is surrounded by an antheridial wall, which is protective in function. It encloses a mass of small fertile cubicle cells, the spermatozoids or the antherozoids. The female reproductive organ is the archegonium. The archegonium, as you are seeing, is a flask-shaped structure, and it consists of two parts: the basal swollen part called the venter and a long slender neck. The neck consists of the neck canal cells, and the venter has a venter canal cell and an egg. The sex organs in the bryophytes are multicellular and jacketed, whereas the sex organs of the lower plants are not having a sterile jacket layer. The sexual reproduction is oogamous type. Now, first let me discuss the structure of the sporophyte. In all bryophytes, the sporophyte is without differentiation and is differentiated into stem and leaves. It is rootless and consists of a foot, seta and capsule. Here you can see it is attached to the parent plant or the gametophyte, and it is having a foot, seta and a capsule. The capsule bears the spores, which are the meiospores. The spores are formed after the meiosis, and they are all alike, called as homospores. The sporophyte is simpler than the gametophyte and is organically attached to the parent plant by means of a foot. Now, what is the structure of the gametophyte? The gametophyte is the dominant phase in the life cycle, and the gametophyte is having two basic forms: the prostrate form and an erect form. The lower plants, the lower group of plant class members, like the hornworts and the liverworts, they have a relatively simple gametophyte which consists of a flat thallus, and the archegonia and antheridia are embedded in the thallus. The structure of the gametophyte is basically the thallus is ribbon shaped, and some liverworts are more elaborate with distinct leaves and stem. The leaves are blunt tipped or lobed and are attached to these stems in two or three overlapping rows. Sporophyte I have discussed earlier. Now, if you happen to see the entire life cycle of the bryophytes, it shows a haplobiontic alternations of generation. What do you mean by alternations of generation? Where two generations, hetero means dissimilar generations, the gametophyte and the sporophyte regularly alternate each other. Now, the gametophyte is the dominant phase in the bryophytes. So, the the gametophyte plant, after the vegetative formation, vegetative reproduction, it enters into the reproductive stage, and the thallus bears the sex organs in the form of antheridium and the archegonium. The structure of antheridium and archegonium I have explained before. The antheridia bears the spermatozoids or sperms, and the archegonium has the egg. A process called fertilization or syngamy takes place, and the one or many antheridoids travel into the neck of the archegonium, and only one sperm or the antherizoid fuses with the egg to form a structure called the zygote. The formation of the zygote gives rise to the second generation of the plant of the bryophytes, that is the plant enters into the diploid generation, which is the sporophytic generation. The zygote gives rise to the embryo, and the embryo after going metamorphic changes gives rise to the spores. The spores or the sporophyte consists of the foot, seta and capsule, and the capsule bears the spores which undergo meiosis, and after meiosis spores are produced, and the spores they germinate to form a juvenile stage called the protonema, and the protonema finally gives to the new plant. So two basic stages, the fertilization and meiosis, demarcate the two generations. The haploid generation begins with the formation of spores and ends with the formation of the spermatozoids and the egg. The fertilization of the syngamy begins the diploid generation, which is the zygote, and zygote gives rise to the embryo, and embryo in turn gives rise to the sporophyte, and thus this life cycle constantly goes on, and this is the alternations of generations in bryophytes. This is all for now. Thank you.